Chapter 6, This Child. I wanted to do everything right. We made sure that Yeshua was circumcised on the 8th day, and 40 days after the birth, we visited the temple to dedicate him to God as our firstborn son and offer our sacrifice. I was determined that nothing I did would give God cause to change his mind. Visiting the temple and offering a sacrifice through the priests, it all felt so important to me. It didn't take long for God to show me how wrong I was. On the day we visited the temple, we left Bethlehem early in the morning. We followed the road, taking the path that winds north through rocky gullies. The breeze helped as the heat increased, though by the time we cleared the ridge and got our first full view of the city, I was starting to feel tired. Seeing the temple took my mind off this at once. It was so impressive. Even from a distance, we could make out the pillars of Solomon's colonnade and the court of the Gentiles. And for most of the last couple of miles, Joseph and I walked in awe. All my life I have been taught that God himself was present in the Holy of Holies, the inner part of the temple. As we approached the gleaming white stone walls that towered above us, I felt nervous and excited. I'd visited the temple each year for as long as I could remember, but this time was different. I was a wife now and a mother, no longer a child. And then there was Yeshua. Knowing that I was carrying the very baby that the prophets spoke of and whose birth had been announced by an army of God's angels, it was at times too much even to begin to understand. I didn't know what I was expecting would happen when we finally reached the temple itself. But as we walked through the outer court, my heart was racing faster than ever. We bought our sacrifice from one of the priests, a pair of doves. It was the only offering that we could afford, the very least that was expected for a firstborn son. But we felt very proud and excited. With our 2 doves at the ready, we stepped towards the next priest. This is it, I thought. He's going to see Yeshua and will somehow know that this is God's chosen one. The priest held out his hands, took the birds, then mumbled his prayer. He didn't even look at us. Within seconds it was over, and he had turned to the next person who was waiting behind us. I felt confused. I looked at Joseph. Had we got all this wrong about Yeshua? Joseph looked disappointed as well. But almost at once we found ourselves being hurried along with everyone else, back towards the court of the Gentiles. It was so crowded, and I clung tight to my body as we shuffled along. I was so upset. I was worried too, but I was trying hard not to show it. Then, without any warning at all, a man stepped out in front of us both. He held up his hands and let out a wild cry, like Moses parting the water. The crowd that had been pushing and shoving was held in its place. The man was old, his face was weather-beaten, but he was clearly no shepherd. He was dressed more like a merchant and looked shrewd and wise. He had his eyes locked on Yeshua. "Now, Lord," he said with his voice trembling, "you can let me die in peace, as you said." He reached forward and, without asking, took Yeshua from me. He held my baby up high in the air, his eyes streaming tears. I stared in disbelief. I didn't know what was happening. "Lord, I have seen you with my own eyes, how you will save your people," he said, his voice trembling, eyes wet with emotion. "Now all people can see your plan." His voice trailed off. He appeared overcome and was shaking. people were staring, but as quickly as it began, it was over. The old man handed Yeshua back to me, and the crowd was moving again, flowing either side of us, as if we were an island. The old man was rapidly pulled away by the crowd. Joseph and I both stood speechless. Then suddenly we saw the old man forcing his way back towards us. His eyes were wild, full of life and fire. Heaving with exertion, he shouted out once more, "My name is Simeon, and this child is the light to reveal God to the nations."